Hey everyone, welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Bold and Beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in.
Electra arrested Luna, and a paternity test reveals that Will is the biological father. The Bold and the Beautiful recap for Monday, October 13th, reports that Electra Forrester arrested Luna Nozawa after a paternity test revealed Will Spencer was the biological father. On Monday's BMB episode, Bridget Forrester conceded Will was the father, but Bill Spencer objected and insisted she retake the test. Bridget maintained there was no point, confirming that Will's DNA was a match. Luna was pleased with the outcome and thanked Bridget for her assistance in saving her life in the surgery room. After Bridget left, Luna foretold that she would marry Will and raise this child together. Electra, Bill, and Katie Logan stood up to Luna, but she was confident that Will would eventually change his mind. Bill apologized for not defending Will, and had to be held back as he went for Luna. Katie and Will alternated ranting at Luna until Deputy Chief Baker arrived to announce that Luna had been arrested. Luna was frantic when Baker and his officers arrived with handcuffs. As Luna attempted to dispute her pregnancy with a Spencer heir, Deputy Chief Baker made it obvious that he didn't care whose kid she was carrying. Electra eventually came out to admit she was the one who contacted the police. As Electra gloated about Luna's return to jail, she told Will that Luna would never be in his life again. Brooke Logan updated Ridge Forrester, Taylor Hayes, and John Finnegan on the DNA test findings after receiving a text from Bridget. Ridge slipped out to handle something on his phone, while Taylor insisted Steffi Forrester hear the most recent Luna news. Finn understood Luna was dangerous and needed to be put away so she couldn't harm anybody else. According to the Bold and the Beautiful spoilers, Luna may have a few more tricks up her sleeve, so stay tuned. The air inside the Spencer home felt heavy that afternoon, the kind of quiet that normally occurs just before everything blows out. Nobody moved, and nobody breathed too loudly, as if the house was bracing for the storm. All eyes were on Bridget Forrester, who stood by the staircase with the printed results in her hand. Her look spoke it all before her voice did. This was the kind of reality that couldn't be softened no matter how delicately conveyed. "It's a match," Bridget finally muttered, her voice firm even as the tension in the room cut through the air like glass. Will is the father." The words seemed to echo off the walls. Bill Spencer snapped his head back, as if he had just been punched. Will Spencer paused, his mouth slightly open and his hands fisted at his sides, as if holding them firmly enough might alter reality. Katie Logan exhaled sharply, the type of shaky breath one lets out after holding it for too long. The most uncomfortable reaction came from Luna Nozawa, who grinned. It wasn't large or loud, but it was smug, the quiet certainty of someone who had been betting on a single card all along and had just seen it hit the table exactly as expected. Bill stepped forward, his voice filled with incredulity. "Run it again, Bridget. There must have been an error." He sounded like he was pleading with the cosmos for a second chance. Bridget shook her head, her tone clipped but soft, like a doctor who had already practiced saying it 100 times. "Bill, I ran it twice. The results are apparent. Will is the biological father of Luna's child." The words hung in the air like fog. Luna tilted her head slightly and gave out a gentle, thoughtful laugh. "Thank you," she softly informed Bridget, as if they were friends exchanging good news over coffee. "Thank you for saving my life that night in the surgery room. I suppose fate brought me here for a reason." Her comments made Bill's jaw clench. Katie stepped in closer to Will, impulsively placing a hand on his arm, as if she could protect him from this situation. However, Will was unable to take his gaze away from Luna. He wasn't saying anything, not yet. He only looked astonished, as if he had fallen through a trapdoor and had not yet reached the bottom. When Bridget left, the temperature of the room changed. The tension had nowhere else to go, so it accumulated like a storm cloud directly between Luna and everyone else. "I told you," Luna said gently, her voice filled with an unpleasant sense of confidence. "Will and I have linked now. This baby alters everything. We'll be a family," she murmured calmly, rehearsedly, and unshakably, making Electra's stomach twist. Electra Forrester took a step forward, her gaze locked on Luna. "You're delusional if you think this means you've won," Electra exclaimed. She didn't even bother to conceal the wrath in her voice. Bill jumped in, his voice low but vibrating with rage. "I swear to God, Luna, if you think you're going to use my son or that child to get your hooks into this family, you're out of your damn mind." Katie's voice quivered as she spoke next, her protective instincts taking over. "You hurt him. You've already harmed him enough. Nothing changes. You're not going to get what you want this time," Luna said calmly. She simply let her hand graze her stomach, a modest gesture from someone who believed the child gave her power. "Oh, I will," she replied softly. "Will is going to come around. He loves me. He may be bewildered right now, but he will see it. He'll see us." Bill pushed forward, his rage exploding in an uncontrolled second. Katie grabbed his arm just in time, stopping him as Will stepped between them, his voice breaking for the first time. "Stop," Will snapped, his fists quivering. "Please stop. I'm not even sure how to breathe right now." Luna remained unfazed by the pandemonium, panic, and sadness. If anything, it made her stand straighter, as if she had just cemented her kingdom. Electra felt something within her break. She'd watched Luna manipulate, lie, and twist things to her advantage for far too long. She was not going to let Luna rewrite this family's future. Bill and Katie were still clutching their son, but Electra's voice slashed through the room like a sword, low and controlled. "You think this baby gives you power," she added, moving closer to Luna. "But it does not. It merely makes your actions much more unacceptable." The noise of tires crunching against the gravel outside interrupted the shouts. Everyone turned as the front door opened, and Bradley Baker, Deputy Chief Baker, stepped in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Luna's confidence wavered for the first time. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice wavering slightly as the officers stepped forward, handcuffs at the ready. Baker's tone was hard and professional, as it always was when he'd made up his mind. "Luna Nozawa," he said, "you're under arrest." The sound of that word, arrest, hung in the air like lightning. Luna's eyes widened, and she immediately wrapped her palm about her tummy, as if to protect herself and the unborn child from reality. "You can't do this," she exclaimed. "I am pregnant with a Spencer heir. You cannot arrest me." Baker did not even blink. "I don't care whose baby it is," he stated frankly. "You broke the law and you will face the penalties. Being pregnant does not make you untouchable." Bill folded his arms tightly, his jaw set, and the first glimmer of grim enjoyment appeared on his face. Will did not move. Katie's hand grasped her son's arm, grounding him in the moment. Luna turned to Bill, then to Will, despair creeping into her voice. "Will," she begged, "say something. Do not let them do this. This is your baby." But Will did not respond. His quiet stung worse than words could. The 2 officers approached, and Luna's voice cracked. "No," she cried, jerking back. "You cannot take me. I am not going back to jail. I won't." The battle lasted barely seconds before the handcuffs were fastened around her wrists. Baker did not even look at her when he gave the signal to move. "Let's go." Electra then walked forward, causing the entire room to go silent. Her eyes met Luna's, steady and cold. "I called them," Electra replied simply. The words landed with a slap. Luna halted, blinking through the shock, as if betrayal was a language she couldn't comprehend. "You," she spat, her voice shaking in amazement. Electra nodded slowly. "Yeah, me. Someone had to stop you." Luna attempted to push forward, but the officers tightened their grip. "You'll regret this," she said between tight teeth. Electra did not blink. "No," she said softly. "You're the one who's going to regret ever thinking you could destroy this family." Luna's cries rang down the hallway as she was taken out of the home. Will finally exhaled, the weight of everything resting in his chest. He didn't feel triumph. It was something heavier, a maelstrom of pain, rage, and confusion. Bill glanced to his kid, his gaze softening slightly. "I'm sorry," Bill said softly, his voice breaking. "I should have protected you from her. I should have noticed it." Will did not answer. He only stared at the door where Luna had vanished minutes before, as if he were looking at the remains of something that had never existed in the first place. At Brooke Logan's residence, things were not much calmer. Brooke had gathered Ridge Forrester, Taylor Hayes and John Finnegan, also known as Finn, in the living room after getting a text from Bridget regarding the DNA findings. Brooke's expression reflected a mix of sympathy and skepticism. "It's true," she murmured quietly, like a whisper. "Will is the father." Ridge strode near the fireplace, phone in hand, but his thoughts were clearly elsewhere. He murmured something under his breath before going outside to make a call. Taylor sat on the couch with her forehead wrinkled. "Steffi needs to know about this," she said. "She has to hear what's happening." Finn stood near the window, arms tightly crossed and jaw hard. "I told you Luna was dangerous," he murmured gently, his voice serene but sharp below. "She should not be out here. She should not be anywhere around Will or the baby." Taylor nodded slowly. "This proves it. She is more than just a dilemma for Will. She is a problem for everyone in this family," Brooke said, closing her eyes briefly. None of this seemed genuine, but it was. A young man's life had just been flipped upside down. A baby's future was at stake, and Luna, unpredictable, unstable, and unrelenting, was being brought back to jail. Back at the mansion, the room became quieter. The storm was past, at least temporarily. Bill stood by the window, peering out at the driveway, where the patrol cars flashing red and blue lights slowly vanished down the street. Katie was still next to Will, murmuring gently, but her words were not intended for anybody else to hear. Electra was standing a few feet away, still recovering her breath, trying to convince herself she'd done the right thing, which she was certain she had. Someone had to defend Will from the woman who had almost wrecked everything. But if anyone thought this marked the end of Luna's reign of chaos, they were mistaken. Luna Nozawa wasn't the sort to give up quietly. She was crafty, manipulative, and always appeared to have a backup plan hidden beneath her grin. Even when the cop car drove away, everyone inside the house realized the situation wasn't finished. This was only the beginning of a new chapter, one that would be messier, darker, and far more hazardous than either of them wanted to admit. Electra knew Luna would come for her, just as she knew Luna would not abandon Will without a battle. Katie knew her kid would face a difficult journey ahead of him. Bill realized he'd have to do more than just protect Will. If necessary, he'd go to war. Will, meanwhile, remained mute in the midst of it all. He did not feel like a father or a victim. He just felt lost. His life wasn't supposed to be like this. A paternity scandal, a manipulative lady, and a future that was already being altered without his knowledge. However, the reality was now apparent. His name was on the DNA test. That child was his. And no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't turn back time. The storm was arrived, and there was no turning back. The home was silent upstairs, but Bill eventually shattered the hush in the living room below. "We're going to fight this," he stated confidently. "She's not going to take my son down with her," Electra said, nodding. Katie squeezed Will's hand. For a brief moment, there was a spark of unity, a fragile, searing determination to safeguard what was theirs. Outside, the sirens had stopped, and the darkness had settled over Los Angeles like a heavy blanket. But the fight between Luna and the Spencers had only recently begun. And Luna, sitting in the back of that patrol cruiser, peered out the window, fire in her eyes. Her wrists were handcuffed, but she still believed she could win the game. The ride to the precinct seemed forever. The metal of the handcuffs bit into Luna Nozawa's wrists with each bump in the road, reminding her of how quickly everything had crumbled. She'd imagined this day countless times, but never like this. In her mind, she saw the moment the paternity test revealed a match as her victory. The moment she finally silenced everyone who had ever questioned her. But this was hardly the glorious finale she expected. Instead of champagne and wedding arrangements, she was taken away in the back of a police car like a felon. She clenched her mouth, forcing her breathing to remain consistent. She refused to cry. She would not give Bradley Baker, those arrogant officers, or anybody else the satisfaction of witnessing her break. Baker sat in the front seat, eyes fixed on the road, jaw hard, and voice low when he spoke. "You should have known this day was coming, Luna," he grumbled. Luna gave him a chilly glare via the rearview mirror. "You've danced around the law long enough. You don't know anything about me," she said, her voice cutting as steel. "I'm not a criminal you can lock up and forget about." This is Will Spencer's baby. Do you have any idea who it is? Baker did not flinch. Yeah, he responded bluntly. And that doesn't make you untouchable. The hush inside Spencer Mansion following the storm was deafening. The blazing patrol lights had faded, leaving an unsettling silence. Will Spencer sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, hands buried in his hair. Bill Spencer placed a hand on his shoulder, and he didn't even look up. For years, Bill had been the unstoppable force, the man with a plan. But gazing at his kid now, pale, terrified and gutted, he felt powerless, which he hadn't felt in a long time. Son, Bill began quietly, his voice low and gruff. Will did not respond to, I know this is a lot. He shook his head slowly, as if attempting to wake up from a bad dream. Katie Logan knelt in front of him, her voice shaking but steady. We'll get through this, sweetheart. You are not alone. Electra stopped a few feet away, arms tightly crossed against her chest. She wasn't used to feeling nervous, but tonight it was very intense. She'd made the call. She had returned Luna to a cage. But she also recognized Luna's capabilities. The woman did not resign. She retaliated. She had done it before and would do it again. Even from a distance, Electra could sense Luna's rage. Upstairs, Will's room light was still turned on. A framed portrait of him as a youth, laughing and carefree while holding a surfboard, sat on the nightstand. It felt like another lifetime. He was not a father back then. He hadn't been duped, deceived, or pulled into a scandalous situation. He finally whispered the words he had been too terrified to say. I don't want this, Will stated, his voice cracking. I don't want to be linked to her. I do not want her anywhere in my life. Or this baby. Katie softly cupped his face, tears welling in her eyes. You don't have to love her, Will, she said quietly. You don't even need to deal with her alone. We are going to protect you. We'll make sure she doesn't ruin your future. Bill straightened up, his enormous presence filling the room once more. She's not coming near this family, he hissed. Not if I have anything to say about it. His voice had a lethal edge to it, the kind that only comes out when someone threatens his blood. We will fight her. We'll utilize every resource, every lawyer, and every bit of power we have. She isn't winning. Meanwhile, at the precinct, Luna was fingerprinted, her wrists red from the cuffs, her eyes icy and calculating. She wasn't having a breakdown. She was not pleading. She was thinking. You look awfully calm for someone about to spend the night in a cell, Baker replied, passing the paperwork to an officer. Luna smirked. Because I know it will not last. I have a baby on the way. Will's baby. Do you think the Spencers will let their grandchild's mother rot in jail? Her voice was sweeter than poison. Baker shook his head slowly. You've underestimated them if you think that's going to save you. After being escorted to the holding cell, Luna sat on the cot's edge, running her hand over her still flat stomach. In her mind, this was a detour rather than a defeat. She had lost a battle but not the war. And she was no longer fighting solely for her independence. She was battling for her place in the Spencer family, whether they wanted it or not. She was willing to use the baby to obtain it. The news had already spread in other parts of Los Angeles. Rich Forrester arrived to the Forrester living room from his phone call, his visage taut. Brooke Logan, Taylor Hayes, and John Finnegan closely observed him. She's in custody, Ridge said, sliding his phone into his pocket. Brooke breathed with relief, but cautiously. Good, she replied quietly. At least she can't hurt Will for now. Taylor nodded. But she won't be kept up forever. Not if she uses the pregnancy card. Judges are sympathetic to pregnant women, particularly if they are carrying the kid of someone like Will Spencer. Finn crossed his arms and paced slowly. I don't trust her, he mumbled. She is dangerous. She is manipulative. She won't quit just because she's in a cell. If anything, this will make her worse. Brooke looked down at her phone, rereading Bridget's text. Will's too young to be dealing with this, she said quietly. He's only a boy. He didn't ask for any of this. Ridge rested a hand on her shoulder. Then we protect him, Ridge stated forcefully. Each of us. This family will not let its members be ruined by people like Luna. At the Spencer mansion, lawyers had already been summoned. Bill strode near the window, his phone tight to his ear, his voice low and lethal as he gave directions to his legal team. "I don't care what it takes," he snarled. "I want complete custody. I want restraining orders. I want her confined so far away that she can't even whisper his name." When he hung up, Electra turned to face him. "Bill," she continued softly, "you know she'll fight back. She'll use that baby to get whatever she wants." Bill grinned grimly. "Then she's in for a fight she can't win." Katie sat on the couch alongside Will, who had barely moved since Luna's arrest. She stretched for his hand, but he softly pulled away. "Mom," Will began, his voice scratchy. "What if the baby is mine?" Katie's heart broke at the obvious terror in his words. "Then we'll deal with it," she assured. "We will do everything we can to safeguard you and that child. However, Luna will not have influence over you. Not now. Not ever." That night, Luna lay awake in her cage, staring at the dim ceiling. She could hear other women shifting on their cots, and the banging of doors in the background. But none of this bothered her. She was already thinking about her next move. She knew Bill Spencer would go to great lengths to protect his son. She knew Electra would keep trying to push her away. But she also knew the law was on her side in one important way. She was pregnant with Will's child. And this made her deadly in a completely new way. She was no longer merely Luna Nozawa. She was the mother of a Spencer heir. The tabloids would be flooded with headlines in the morning. Will Spencer's baby bombshell, Luna Nozawa arrested, and Spencer scandal erupts. The story would spread throughout Los Angeles. Whispers filled boardrooms, Forrester Creations runways, and Spencer Publications corridors. But for the people at the heart of it, Will, Bill, Katie, and Electra, this wasn't gossip. It was wartime. And in the silence of the mansion, long after everyone else had gone to bed, Will stood alone by the window, gazing at the city lights. His reflection stared back at him, not the carefree child he once was, but a young man thrown into maturity overnight. He touched the glass and exhaled softly. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly to the empty room. But whether he wanted it or not, the future had come. Luna's arrest had not resolved anything. It had just drawn battle lines. Meanwhile, Luna smirked to herself in the dark, murmuring quietly, "You can't remove me, Bill. You cannot delete your grandchild's mother." And with that, the stage was set. Attorneys would clash. Custody disputes would ensue. Families would choose sides. But one thing was clear. This was more than simply a paternity test. The story revolved around power, bloodshed, and people going to extreme lengths to defend loved ones or win their rightful future.